Hello, everyone. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, home of newsstreamingnetwork.com, which is also the Going Bold Media and the Going Solo Media. And then, the WGSN is really our radio station. So we want to thank you guys for joining us each and every time, building up our audience. We love that. We have over 6 million on Roku, and I want to thank you guys for joining us and really supporting our station and all of our hosts and guests. But we have got to get busy here because we are on the Link to Expert Business Showcase. I am one of your hosts. I am Cece Shatz, and I have my good friend here, Joanne Weiland. Joanne, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Joanne Weiland, Link to Expert. I created Link to Expert so we could all help each other by collaborating because everybody's good at something, but not everything. And so it's so nice when you can just find an expert, check out their credentials, and hire them in minutes so you can implement your idea.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what our show here today is about, Link to Expert. But before we start, I want to make sure you guys know to check out linktoexpert.com. Joanne is actually the Chief Connections Officer, and she's the founder of the Collaborative Cloud community. If you do not know what it is, you must go to linktoexpert.com and check it out. If you're a professional of any sort, product, services, it is definitely something that you want to look into because I think it definitely can boost your business, make it a little bit easier for you to find experts that might need a little bit more help in your business. So let's move on to Link to Expert Business Showcase. That's what we're on today. We have our wonderful guest here today. You want to go ahead? We're going to talk about Beyond the Phones, the new era of business and communication with Derek. So go ahead, Derek Dyke. And Joanne, you can introduce him why I bring him up.
We are so excited to have Derek Dyke with us today. Actually, Cece and I met him at a CEO breakfast. The CEO breakfast was sponsored by Leading Peers, which is one of our affiliates. And so we got to talking, and Derek and I have been communicating ever since. And we just were saying, have got to have him on the show because more and more people are facing a lot of the issues that has the solution for. So welcome, Derek.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, we're excited because I feel like you're on the leading edge of so many different technologies, and that we know that if people are looking today to elevate their communication and improve their client engagement, which is the key to getting more business, that they're going to really understand that they're at the right place today at the right time. So we're so excited to have you join us, Derek.
Absolutely. There's been a lot that has changed recently, and there are more changes to come with the advancement of technology. And, we're going to try to talk today about a very boring subject to some people, but is very crucial to everyone. So I'm going to do my best to make it as less as painless as possible to understand all of these things.
Well, that's because so many things have changed so rapidly over the last few years. I know, I grew up in technology and everybody always thought, they're going to wait for the next technology because they feel like, that'll even be better. But I used to always tell them it's always going to get better. So the more you wait, the more you're not going to have the latest thing. But I noticed even myself being in technology for most of my life, it's really seemed to grow changing more rapidly. What do you think the cause of that is?
Well, so number one, the pandemic, right? So the pandemic did for the communications industry what would have taken 10 years to do, 1 year, essentially, right? So think back to 2019, how many people even had webcams on their laptops? That was not a standard feature back then. We were shipping out webcams right and left to customers. We had huge call centers that were completely shut down, that had to be in a virtual environment literally overnight or over a weekend because they could not be down. And so it really reshaped how we all work today. Customers that would have never gotten on a Zoom call or a Teams call or a WebEx call before. Now it's commonplace. Now it's something that you do and you don't even think about anymore. And so with that with the force of that change, it's opened up the doors for all the other technologies to ride on that coattail.
Oh, that makes total sense because you're right. I mean, I myself, being in sales, traveled over 1,000,000 miles because I would physically make an appointment and go visit the people at their location.
Yep.
And so now it's very rare that, like, you and I actually met I think it was last week in person, which is more rare just because now it's usually like we're on now online and communicating with the world. So it is interesting to see the difference.
It is. When COVID first hit, we performed some massive. My previous company, we performed some massive migrations, and I was interviewed for a publication where they asked, how are businesses going to cope? And one of the things I told them is, you're not really asking the right question. It's how is management going to cope with this remote work, with this incomplete change to how they're used to managing their employees and how they're used to hearing complaints, getting the feel of what's actually going on in your business. And a lot of people didn't really catch on to that, but those are the crucial things that were given up. You see the employee upset because a customer yelled at them, or problems happening, and hey, something's going on there, I need to see what's going on. Now that's all done remotely. If you're not invited to the call, you don't know what's going on in your business. And so really adjusting to that, as well as expanding the tools and capabilities, making your employees' lives better, as opposed to just patching together a bunch of different technologies, which, fortunately, a lot of businesses had to do just to keep the doors open, just to keep running.
Exactly. No, it's such a change. I mean, when you really think about it, it was amazing how quickly it happened overnight. And then I'm sure many companies just had, the technology they had and they tried to make it work. But
Yep.
would you think now would be the time to upgrade your systems to, be more current and more efficient to work with your clients, as well as, like you said, your employees? Because a lot of employees, I'm sure, are very frustrated too when they can't get it to work and their livelihood depends on talking to those clients, whether it's
Absolutely.
video or
Yep.
on the phone. And, the
It's
between all
tough.
those units have to work smoothly.
It's interesting how technology works. It's when a feature is new, when a new capability is available, right? Like to be able to take a phone home and plug it into your internet and get it to work. That was great. Even if it dropped calls, even if it wasn't perfect, everyone's like, and this, I'm talking 10 years ago, right? Everyone's like, they had some leniency for that. Now, that's unacceptable. Calls need to work. This needs to happen. And so what we're seeing now in the technology space of this is the companies who are, they're using Slack for their communication, or they're using Teams to message, but they're using a different phone system to make calls. And then they've got Zoom licenses that they do meetings with their users. And again, that was the patching all these technologies to work.
Sure.
But it truly causes a burden. I mean, think about bringing on a new employee and, okay, we need you to learn our business. Plus I've got 12 portals that I need to set you up on and give you need to learn how to use all of these. And what sadly happens more often than not is we go into companies and we start looking at all their stuff, and it's like, hey, you've got, 20 employees here that we can't find. And like, oh man, they haven't been here for years. And it's like, well, add up those monthly costs times however many years you forgot about it, and you could have paid for another employee headcount, So it's really, the time is now. The technology has come together. And part of the reason why I started Exsidio is I saw where the technology was going. And I knew that it was going to be Microsoft Teams, Cisco WebEx, Zoom. I don't think Zoom's going anywhere, but they are in a shift of their own, and they're good at some things, they're not good at others. And so, seeing that, that's what inspired me to start at Exsidio and really try to be at the forefront of where, I see the funnel of all business communications going. So I'll expand a little bit more on that. And so what I do mean about that is there are a ton of providers out there today that are selling dial tone. Okay. And that's what the majority of their users have. They've either got a phone on their desk, or they have a soft phone client on their computer, but that's literally it. That's all they're using. And the majority of the providers out there, their customers are really using less than 10% of the features and capabilities of that platform for multiple reasons. It's the video solution on there is not as good. So, when's the last time you've joined anything other than a Teams meeting, a Zoom meeting, a WebEx meeting, or a Google Meet meeting, right? That war's been won. Those are the ones that work consistently, time in, time out. But there's hundreds of other ones that are part of these solutions that people have that they just don't use. And so, our goal with Exsidio is how do we get our customers to move that from 10% to 40 to 50%. I'd love it if they're using 80 to 100%, but that's difficult in its own reasons, and we can talk about that. But how do we get them using the technology consistently, and making it a better experience, not just for the end users, but when all your end users are communicating well together, you're going to have a better customer experience. That's just going to be the byproduct that happens.
Right. No, it's so true. And it must be so challenging, especially because more and more people are remote, and you can't, if you will, sit down with them. And even though you can online, but you also even have to first get that to work before you can. And I know myself, even though I grew up in technology, it still frustrates me sometimes.
Yeah, it's well, I'll give you an example of that. Take a conference room, for example, and it's ironically enough, I just had a call from a customer earlier. So if you remember, for the last 15, 20 years, you had the star phone in the middle of the conference room, right?
Yes.
That you dialed. Everyone remembers those. Well, COVID made those obsolete. Whereas that was the norm to get on that. Now you need to be able to just push a button and join the meeting. The problem there is everyone has their solution, but it's, well, this camera's hooked up to this PC and it works, but sometimes when we join, we try to switch from a Zoom meeting to a Teams meeting, it doesn't work. Or, we've got this all-in-one unit, but it works, but it doesn't, seems like every time the CEO goes in there and they try to get it to work, they have to call IT or they get a frustrated call. And so that's another piece where the technology has shifted. I actually stopped, I removed the whole product line of conference equipment during the pandemic, not because we weren't selling it, we were selling a ton of it, but it was just destroying our support teams, having to walk customers through, because again, they just didn't work perfectly with every little software. It worked great with Teams, but it wasn't great on Zoom, or wasn't great in Google. And so you needed that CEO proof technology. And so that's where we're at today. Again, Cisco is the platform that we is our primary focus, just because I believe it's the best platform on the network, on the marketplace. It's a new hosted version of Cisco's platform, so it competes with all the other carriers out there. It's kind of the best kept secret out there, but it has these all-in-one solutions where literally the CEO walks up, whether it's a Zoom meeting, whether it's whatever, there's a green join button, they click that and they're done. And again, that's what they expect now. They've lost the 5 years ago, all right, call IT, we'll get it to work. You were fine with it. Now we're sick of that. I want it to work. I don't care how much it costs. I need it to work. I need us to not look like we don't know what we're doing.
Well, you were just at a Cisco conference out in Vegas when couple weeks ago. I remember when we tried to get on each other's calendar. So it's always evolving and changing. So thank you for keeping up with it, because somebody has to.
Well, that's the other piece of it as well with this technology, which is most of the time with any of your vendors, not just with your communication vendors, but you sign a, oh yeah, you're looking here at the interface, the devices, and how everything meshes together. So with most vendors, you sign your agreement, and then you don't hear from them again until your agreement's up for renewal, right? And I hate that, because this technology changes, new features come out all the time, and nothing disturbs me more than when I hear from a customer who's like, well, I just wish we could have done that. I'm going, could have done that 3 years ago, but either the salesperson didn't reach out to them or the sales engineer. So we've set up programs where at least twice a year we're touching base with our customers of how's everything working now. I'd rather get in front of an issue now than have it stew for years, which a lot of times it does. People just look around it. But also, what are some things you'd like to do? What are some, what are you doing today? You got all the blocking and tackling done. Everything, your basic stuff today is working. What else can you imagine that maybe we can try or figure out that would make your life easier? So, what we're showing here is all the devices. They're all on the same system. It's produced by, not that we can't work with other vendors, Yealink, Polycom, but it's a seamless solution, seamless devices that are Cisco devices. It's a Cisco platform. It can be a Cisco router and access point if you want. So it's all in one ecosystem, which no other vendor can speak about. And we are I would say we are on the forefront and the experts in this space of making all this happen.
Yeah, Derek, when I was looking at your website, I wanted to bring this up because when I was looking at your website, I was like, wow, because years ago, my ex and I had an accounting business, and we had, all the phone systems and everything like this, but with no video or anything like that. And I was looking at it thinking, wow, it has come so far. And, I thought, well, let me show it on the site so people can see that not only are you able to connect, in your office on the phone, but you're able to connect on your computer. You're able to connect through the phone, your cell phone. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways in which to connect. And I believe you're on the forefront of being able to, be on that hot trail, that we have in technology, because technology is forever changing. What we're going to talk about today could be maybe even a couple months or whatever change as we progress. And you've got your thumb on it. You're really making sure that you're moving forward in a very positive way. But also, as you're moving forward, you're also broadening yourself into the arena of business, understanding what businesses need in order to survive. Because I tell you, when COVID hit, there was many businesses that went out because they just couldn't move fast enough. They knew the technology, they needed to go towards that, and they just didn't know how to go about doing it. And so, your company has taken up that slack to help these individuals in their businesses to be able to understand what you need to do in order to move forward quickly and continuously, because we cannot take our thumb off of the technology, and as it continues to grow. And we need someone like you, Derek, that's going to keep, up with what's happening, so that we're right there on the ever change, as we continue on.
It's important, the vendor that you choose, because people use the tools they know. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I was reminded of this. I had surgery last year, and when I was debating on whether or not to do the surgery, one of the advice was, look, you really need to look at your doctor. If they're a surgeon, that's the tool they know. They want to operate. That's what they do. If your doctor's more of internal medicine, that's what they're going to want to do. And that's no different in technology. A lot of people in technology are slow to change because they know what they know. They know what works. Mm-hmm. And that's proven true for a long time. But this space is changing so quickly, and new capabilities are becoming available to the small business and medium-sized business community that were never available before. They were only available to enterprise. And while it may seem like a nice to have now, I promise you in 5 years, if you don't have them, you're not competing with your competition. Your competition's going to blow you away. And it's important to look at your technology as a whole now, because it'll cost you far more to rip and replace everything when you finally realize, hey, we have to compete with our competition, as opposed to putting together what I like to call a crawl, walk, run scenario, right? What are we doing today? Let's not come in and sell you the mansion here. Let's just look at what you're doing. Let's mimic what you have today, improve upon what you have today. And when you were showing the website, that's not new technology at all. Companies have been doing this stuff for a while, but does it work well, right? Because we all know the moment it doesn't work well or an employee gets frustrated, they stop using it. And so if it doesn't do what they're trying to do every time, or it's multiple steps, they just don't take advantage of it. So now you have the solution that works well from the get-go as a base level, your core foundation. So now over the next 3 to 5 years, how do we add on new technologies to engage with our customers? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to have to take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about what we're talking about, because I think as we progress with technology and as we move forward, into the next whatever, we want to keep our hands on the pulse of it. But, there's a lot of change happening, like, cable versus fiber optic and all of this kind of thing. What are people doing now? What are they going to now? And what we're going to be doing, because we are going to be forever changing. And that's what I think people need to realize, is that whatever's happening today is not going to be, it's just going to be changing so quickly. And I love the idea that you've got your hands on the pulse of it, making sure that, you can help businesses make that change and project it out. I love that, 3 to 5 years. I love that, to be able to start projecting out. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about that. But before we do, let's make sure you guys know how to reach him. I'm going to spell out his business. You go to his website. It's exsidio.com. exsidio.com. So make sure you check it out. It's really an interesting website. It's got a lot of information on there so that you can see it. I was very impressed with it myself. So Derek, I want to thank you so much for being with us here today. It is just a delight to have you. And as we move forward, we're going to talk a little bit more about, what that 3 and 5 years is going to look like. So we'll be right back, everyone. You're listening to Link to Expert Business Showcase. I am Cece Shatz. I have my good friend Joanne Weiland here with me, and we're talking about Beyond the Phones, the new era of business communication with Derek Dyke, and he definitely knows what he's talking about. So don't miss the second half. You missed the first. Well, you can go back and do a rewind, watch it again, and we'd love for you to do that. And let's stick around for the second half, because it is going to be ever changing. So we'll be right back. Hello, welcome back. You're listening to Link to Expert Business Showcase. I am one of your hosts, Cece Shatz. I have my good friend here, Joanne Weiland. We're on the newstreamingnetwork.com, which is home of the Going Solo Media and the Going Bold Media, which those individuals that are leading the way, actually, they're very inspirational. And we want to thank everyone that joins us on that. And then, of course, our radio station, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network. We have been on the radio for, I don't want to date myself, but for years. And we want to thank you guys that listen to us there, because we do appreciate you supporting us each and every time. So, everyone, we're talking about Beyond the Phones, the new era of business communications with Derek Dyke. Derek has a wonderful website that you guys want to check it out. I'm going to spell it again. It's exsidio.com. Check it out.
Exsidio.
exsidio.com. And yeah, so we were talking, the first part of the show, really about like technology, how we move forward so ever quickly, through COVID, how we had to really kind of pull up our bootstraps and take a hold of technology, because we realized that was going to be our future in today's world. Now, as we're moving forward now in our world today, we realize that is not going to change. It's just ever moving quickly, and we must be able to not only be as educated as we possibly can, but we need to seek out individuals that can be specialized in what they do. And I think, Derek, you're one of those individuals that are, you're specialized in what you do. You specialize in business, trying to really grab a hold of those businesses that realize that, their dynamics of business has changed, because not only do they have individuals that are maybe in the office, they've got individuals that are working from home, individuals that are maybe in another country they're communicating with. And so they realize that in order for us to be able to continue with business and be effectively, we must be able to, be at the pulse of the technology, and that you are. And so let's talk a little bit about, what's changing with, I know, cable and fiber optics and all that. That's like a whole new lingo, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what I like to do with customers is break down their technology into different layers, right? Make it more understandable. So that first layer is your connectivity, right? So that can be a cable, as simple as a cable modem. First of all, there is no one size fits all solution for any business. I can, whether it's a 10 user business, a 50 user business, a 250 user business, even if they're doing the same thing, they have different needs, they have different budgets, and they have different requirements for what they're looking for. And so, it's important to understand that, and it's important to have different or show different technologies that work for those different business types. So that first layer, connectivity. So what's changed with that? So obviously you have, cable has come a long way. The speeds now, the consistency that have come with that. A lot of businesses run with that. A lot of businesses go with fiber. They pay a little extra to have the dedicated fiber connection. But what you have now is the ability to, and it again depends on the size of your business. If you have an office with X amount of employees in it, and your internet's down, how much does that cost you an hour? What does that failover look like for you? And whether that's another failover circuit, or what's the new thing now is the 4G, 5G cellular solutions that have come a long way and are able to fill in that backup. There's a product that we sell through a company called Infinite Wireless, and what they took it a step further on the 4G, 5G. They actually have virtual SIMs inside their devices where it's going to find who the best carrier is, because that's a lot of problems that people have. Hey, I've got a Verizon hotspot, but I'm not in a Verizon area and I'm getting terrible service. So it's seeing those technologies. It's seeing Starlink. Starlink is another addition that a lot of people aren't thinking about, but you should be working with a partner that is looking at and using those technologies. I had an example of one of our customers. They were driving from Arizona to Vegas, and they put a Starlink mobile device on the top of their car. His wife was getting 300 megs down, driving 70 miles an hour, probably faster than that, through the desert where there's zero radio service, zero anything. So, you think about construction sites, things like that, people continue using the technology they have, and they'll finally will get introduced to a new solution, go, oh man, this is so much better. And it's like, it was here years ago, you just need to ask.
Mm-hmm.
So I love when I engage with customers or any of our techs or salespeople. I encourage them, ask questions. What else could we be doing here? What are some of the new things that are out there that we have? The second layer would be your managed services, your routers, your switches. That's going to go to the security component of your business. And again, a 5 to 15 user company is going to have different needs than a 15 to 50 user company versus, and so there's no one size fits all. And there are different capabilities, different things that you can do in those to enhance your business, or should be doing, to make sure that you're secure. And security is a hot topic right now in our space. And we're definitely going to see, especially with the rise of AI, we're going to see more and more of that as a necessity. So it's important that if you're running on the same technology you were on 5 years ago, the same router, the same switch, the same everything, it doesn't hurt to ask a question. It's better to do that than to have an issue down the road. All right.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
yeah. And then let's expand into some of the new features and new capabilities. And so in our space and what's coming out. So we talked about the communicating with your customers, right? That's something you should constantly be looking at, especially if you're very customer centric. What is the experience like dialing in? Is it the same greeting, the same person speaking all the way through, or does it sound like you have a bad experience, or not a bad experience, but it's just you're like, I gotta wait on hold, I gotta go through all these prompts, this is the first impression your customers get to you, and you're already putting yourself in a negative when it's so easy to do the opposite. So it's important to look at that. How are calls answered? But more than that, let's look 3 to 5 years down the road. How are you communicating with your customers who are not calling you? Are you a clothing retailer who you do a lot of sales on Instagram? Okay. How are you connecting your Instagram chat into your phone system chat? How are you connecting your Facebook chat? How are you connecting SMS, right? And while that might be overkill for you today, it should be in your mind that, hey, eventually we're going to need to invest and do this, because, like I said, your competition absolutely will be in the next 5 years. And so, have these conversations now and kind of set a roadmap for where you want to be. Another advancement in the technology and where it's headed is AI. And I'm a little, it's a little, everywhere I go now, it's just every vendor, AI. And when you really get down to it, it's kind of cool, nice to have features, but it's not business impacting yet, but it will be very quickly. So what do I mean by that? It can be something as simple as a receptionist that's a virtual AI. And the technology is already there, where you can't tell if that's an AI person on the other end. You can sort of tell, but it's already there. And so is that tying into your other systems, so that, hey, I'd like to schedule an appointment. Okay, great. Let me pull up the calendar. Dr. So-and-so looks like they're available Thursday, the 24th. Let me go ahead and get you scheduled. All of this without bothering anyone from within the your practice there, or taking orders, checking balances, things like that. These are things that were standard practice for when you call into big companies. But they're now available to the SMB market. And so it's important to start thinking forward with that. I mean, the platform we're on is the same platform companies like Delta uses, right? Now, granted, they're using an advanced contact center solution, but it opens up these technologies. And like I said, it's hard to do this overnight. They need to be gradual steps. We need to add this. We need to see, okay, the CRM solution we're using today doesn't allow us to do that. So maybe in the next 12 months, we should look at a newer, a better CRM that will allow us to do some integrations, or our ERP, things like that.
Right.
If you're not having those conversations within your teams, from your IT staff or your vendors, you need to start having them now. It'll come back to bite you in the future, I promise.
What do you mean by ERP? Not everybody knows what that means.
Oh, sorry. So different depending on the business that you're in. A CRM is a customer relationship management tool. So that's a HubSpot, a Go High Level, Salesforce, and so again, you want to empower your employees that you can now, within your Salesforce, it's tracking all of your calls, right? It's tracking everything automatically so that your managers can report on that. It's scheduling meetings through there. It's, when a call comes in, it automatically pops up that person's information based off the phone number. An ERP, and I'm drawing a blank on the acronym right now, but essentially
yes,
a lot of our doctors' offices, manufacturing companies, it's a software tool that they use that manages all their customer data, all their processes, things like that.
And come to think of it, another thing I thought of is a lot of people that are tuned in, listening, watching us, they're probably asking too, does it matter how many employees they have? Is that a big deal for what you're talking about? Or is there different sizes for different size companies?
It absolutely does. And so if you have 5 to 10 employees, spending the money on the development to tie some of these systems in, maybe on a base level is worth it, but on an advanced level, it's probably not worth that amount of money. But if you've got 20, 10 to 20 salespeople and you're trying to manage them, yeah, it's worth spending the money, because now you just became a much better manager using the tools that you have, because you have everything in one place. Another example of that is spending the money. If you have a call center, let's say you've got 5 to 10 call center agents and you don't have a supervisor, well, there's tools now with AI where it'll automatically listen to all the calls for you. It will rate the calls and go, all right, hey, the call with Sam didn't go well. We flagged this one. You probably want to take a listen to it. And so instead of you spending your day listening in on calls to make sure your business is running, you're now using the tools that are available today that they cost a little bit of money, but it's far cheaper than hiring a supervisor that's sitting there and listening to the calls. So it's always a balance. It depends on what size you are. And then it depends on the vendor that you go with. If you're a small business, but the vendor you work with only works with enterprise companies, they're going to give you a great solution. You're going to pay a lot of money. On the flip side of that, if you're a medium-sized business, but the vendor you work with primarily deals with small businesses, you're going to get a small business solution, because that's the tools that they know. So it's important to be curious, ask these questions.
I love when you say that, be curious. Yes.
I like that.
Absolutely. And if your vendor gets upset because you're asking these questions, well, that's a telltale sign there. There should be collaboration between your vendors, because at the end of the day, all it does is build a stronger platform for you.
Absolutely. Well, we're probably going to have to close. Is there any last words you'd like to share?
The only thing I would say is I would love if we love working with new clients. Reach out. Feel free to schedule a consultation, see if we're a good fit. We are the vendor that if we are not a good fit, we're going to tell you. We are not. We don't want to sell a square peg in a round hole and make it fit. We want to have good partners and good customers.
Well, and I really do believe that, because of the fact that you're constantly educating yourself and keeping up with the new technology, you'll know if you're the right fit for them or not. And
absolutely.
I know, that's priceless right there, because a lot of people try to make it work and then they're not happy with it. And I
The
also
money's not worth it just to cram it through.
exactly. So we appreciate you, Derek, being open and honest. And Derek can be reached at Derrick, Derrick, at Exsidio, and it's EXSIDIO.com. And so we're really excited to have him because this really is leading edge information. And we want to always keep you abreast of what's going on and learn from the different experts. And we know Derek Dyke is one of the experts when it comes to this communication field because it's ever changing. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you both for having me.
Absolutely. It's quite an honor to have you here with us talking about communication, the new era of business and communication beyond the phones. And it's ever changing technology. And so we've got to grab a hold. And what we don't understand, we need to find an expert to be able to talk to them. And Derek Dyke is definitely the person to talk to about communication. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here today on the Link to Expert Business Showcase. I am one of your hosts, Cece Shatz. I have my good friend Joanne Weiland here with me, and we hope to see you next time. Bye for now, everyone. You're listening to newsstreamingnetwork.com and WGSN-DB Going Solo Network Radio. Bye for now, everyone.